The colony ship Meridian's Hope had been orbiting the uncharted moon of Droxa 7 for 3 solar cycles when Brandon Chen first heard the crying. It wasn't a sound that should have existed in the abandoned mining facility, a place where the Draxian Empire had extracted rare minerals decades ago before mysteriously vanishing overnight. Brandon adjusted his environmental suit's audio sensors, convinced the isolation was playing tricks on his mind. But there it was again, a desperate, keening wail that resonated through the crystalline cavern walls like a symphony of grief. "Command, this is Survey Team Beta." Brandon spoke into his com. "I'm detecting unusual biological signals in Sector 7 Delta, requesting permission to investigate." Static crackled before Julia Park's voice came through, calm and professional as always. She was the mission's xenobiologist, currently stationed in the mobile lab 3 kilometers above ground. "Brandon, your vitals are spiking. What's going on down there?" "I think something's alive down here, Jules. Something that sounds ... young, scared." There was a pause. The Draxians were legendary warriors, their dragon-like physiology making them the most feared species in 3 galactic quadrants. Their disappearance had been celebrated by many worlds they'd conquered, but something in that cry touched a primal instinct in Brandon's chest. The same instinct that made humans stop for injured animals on ancient Earth highways. "I'm coming down," Julia said firmly. "Don't approach until I arrive." But Brandon was already moving toward the sound, his helmet lights cutting through the perpetual twilight of the cavern. The mining facility's corridors were massive, built to accommodate Draxian frames that stood 3 meters tall. His footsteps echoed as he descended deeper, following the cries that grew more desperate with each passing moment. He found it in what must have been a nursery chamber. The creature was small, barely the size of a human child, with scales that should have gleamed like polished obsidian but were now dull and covered in dust. Its wings, still underdeveloped, trembled with each sob. But what stopped Brandon's heart was the creature's eyes, milky white, clouded over, unseeing. The baby dragon was blind. Around the chamber lay signs of hasty evacuation, scattered belongings, overturned furniture designed for beings much larger than humans. In their panic to flee whatever catastrophe had struck, they'd left this one behind. The hatchling's head swiveled toward Brandon's approach, its nostrils flaring. It released a pitiful chirp, not aggressive, but terrified. It had probably been alone for days, maybe weeks, slowly starving in the darkness that was both literal and, for the creature, permanent. Brandon knew the smart thing would be to wait for Julia. The Draxians had spent centuries raiding human colonies, enslaving populations, burning worlds. This creature would grow into one of them, a predator, a warrior, a threat. But in that moment, Brandon saw only a child, abandoned, afraid, dying alone in the dark. He knelt slowly, removing his glove despite the risk. The moon's atmosphere was breathable but cold, and protocol demanded full suit integrity. But protocols were written by people who'd never heard a baby cry in the ruins of its own home. "Hey there, little one," Brandon whispered, extending his bare hand. "I know you can't see me, but I'm here." The hatchling flinched, a weak hiss escaping its throat. Its tiny claws scraped against the stone floor as it tried to retreat, but it was too weak. Brandon could see its ribs through the scales, could hear the rattle in its breathing. He moved closer, letting the creature catch his scent. Draxians had exceptional olfactory senses, perhaps even more crucial for this blind hatchling. Slowly, carefully, he touched the dragon's snout. The effect was immediate. The creature stilled, its blind eyes seeming to widen. Then it did something that would later make xenobiologists across the galaxy reconsider everything they thought they knew about Draxian neurology. It leaned into Brandon's touch, a sound like a broken purr rumbling from its chest. "Brandon, what the hell are you doing?" Julia's voice crackled through his helmet. She'd arrived at the chamber entrance, her portable lab equipment in tow. Through his helmet's rear display, he could see her face, a mixture of scientific fascination and absolute horror. "It's blind, Jules. They left it behind. It's just a baby." Julia approached carefully, her scanners already active. "Brandon, this creature's biology is fascinating, but we can't." She stopped as the hatchling turned its head toward her, voice whimpering. "Oh no, yeah," Brandon said softly. "Oh no." Julia knelt beside him, her scientific training warring with something more human, more fundamental. She'd studied Draxian physiology for years, had testified at war tribunals about their atrocities, but she'd never seen one like this, vulnerable, abandoned, desperate for connection. "Its neural pathways are severely underdeveloped," Julia murmured, her scanner painting holographic data in the air. The blindness isn't from injury, it's congenital. In Draxian culture, she paused, her expression darkening. They would have considered it defective. Warriors don't keep the weak. Brandon felt anger flare in his chest, not at the hatchling, but at a culture that could abandon its own young. Then they don't deserve this one. Over the next hour, they worked together. Julia synthesized a nutrient paste from their emergency supplies, while Brandon kept physical contact with the hatchling, learning that touch was its primary way of understanding the world. When they offered food, the creature devoured it desperately, its weak chirps becoming stronger. Command will never approve this, Julia said, as they prepared to transport the hatchling to the surface, bringing a Draxian aboard the colony ship. Brandon, they'll court-martial us both. Brandon looked at the small dragon, now sleeping peacefully against his chest, its blind face nuzzled into his suit. For the first time in what must have been days, it wasn't crying. Then let them, he said quietly. Humanity spent centuries fighting monsters. Maybe it's time we proved we're better than that. Maybe that's what makes us human, not that we can defeat our enemies, but that we can choose mercy when no one expects it. Julia was silent for a long moment. Then she smiled, that fierce smile he'd fallen in love with during their academy days. You know what? Fuck yeah. Let's show them what humanity's really about. They named the hatchling Echo for the sounds it made that had drawn Brandon into the depths, and as they ascended toward the surface, carrying the forgotten dragon baby toward an uncertain future, neither of them realized they were making history, proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its ability to fight, but its stubborn, foolish, beautiful refusal to abandon those who cried, alone in the dark, even when those cries came from the children of their enemies.